the muscle I like, and we've all experienced this before, you take a look at your phone and it's like you're down to like 2% on your phone, and you start scrambling for an iPhone wire. Because if that phone dies, it takes so long to reboot. You know what I mean? Once you hit 0, that's it. You're done for a few minutes. So, but if you plug that in, right away it starts going up. If you hit 0 on your Gemara learning, to get back in, you need a full reboot. It's not just like a little plug-in, then you gotta wait, then you gotta do. If you just connect it at 2%, I'll go up slowly, I'll get there, and at the right time, you'll reconnect, whether it's back in yeshiva, or just, whatever, a new chavrusa, a new stage of life, a new plan to make it successful. So I'd say even in those moments where you're not succeeding, don't be like throwing the towel in this one area completely. That's never gonna be helpful.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Be'in Podcast. This week was a very special episode, honestly. It was the first episode that I ever did in front of a live crowd. I went back to my alma mater, Yeshivat Torat Shraga. Shout out to the Rebbe there for hooking this one up to make this happen. I sat down with Rabbi Yisrael Feld. For those of you that do not know who Rabbi Feld is, he is a Rebbe Yeshivat Torat Shraga throughout the year. He runs Sulam in the summers and also a brand new program that's happening this year for high school boys, which is called Amcha. And honestly, I felt like he was one of the best people and most qualified people to talk about the things that students deal with during this 3-week period of, call it Bein Hazman and Pesach break. And honestly, a lot of the things that we discussed in this podcast are relevant to people well after their years in yeshiva or in seminary. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, I don't know if this is relevant for me, I highly recommend stick around and listen to some of the stories and just the advice that Rabbi Feld gives. It was an amazing conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I always do, honestly. Before we get to this episode, I want to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, and that is the Yachad Summer. Yachad Summer has so many amazing opportunities for students in yeshiva and seminary to work in the summer after their time in Israel to keep the growth and just transition it into a chesed-oriented job. We'll talk about that throughout the podcast. We'll see you guys soon, and enjoy this week's episode with Rabbi Yisrael Feld. Welcome to the Israel Gap Year Be'in Podcast. I'm your host, Avi Proctor, and in each episode, we get Be'in in depth into the remarkable lives of individuals in Israel who dedicate themselves to inspiring the next generation of Klal Yisrael. Welcome, Rabbi Feld, to the Israel Gap Year Podcast. Pleasure to have you.
Me.
Obviously, for those that are watching this on YouTube, you can tell that I'm in a different location. Behind the cameras happens to be, there are probably about 60 Shraga Bachrim in this room. Make a little bit of noise, everybody. Come on. There you go. Appreciate it. First time I've ever had the guts to do this in front of a live crowd. So thank you to Rabbi Schneider for making this one happen, and also for you for joining this. Okay. There's a lot we're going to talk about today, primarily on the topic of you get off the plane for Pesach break, that 3.5-week time period where you're not in any structure whatsoever. Before we get to anything like that, give me a little bit of an insight to you. You are Rebbe in Yeshiva. You've done a lot of things in your life. How did we get here today? And then we'll go from there.
It's a good question. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. First ever live podcast for Israel Gap Year. How did I get here today? So I'm from Teaneck, New Jersey, originally. I studied here in Israel for 2 years. Then I went to YU. I came to the Gris Kollel in this building right here. And I've been in Rebbe in Yeshivat Torat Shraga for the last 8 years. Big schus to be here. In the summers, there you go.
Late clap. It's all good.
In the summers, I run Sulam, and this year, coming year, Amcha as well. And that's a little bit about me.
Big plug, by the way. I'll put the links to those in
Thank
in
you.
the show
Appreciate
notes.
that.
If I would have told you 10 plus years ago, when you were in the stage of basically every kid in this room, what you would be doing today, what would you have said to me?
Definitely not this. I'm not sure exactly what. That's a good question. Maybe I wish I thought about it a little bit more. But I'm happy that I ended up over here. That's the truth.
First of all, great answer. Okay, but let's go through more like specifics to kind of how you got here, when you went to Gris, and in that time period of your life, what were some of the deciding factors that made you say, okay, I want to move to Eretz Yisrael, I want to raise my family here, I want to work in yeshiva? Like, take me through that process a little more.
Yes, I'll tell you, I had really, really good Rebbeim growing up. There's a rabbi that's become very, very popular. I knew him, I think, even before that. His name's Rabbi Cement, Aaron Cement.
Shout out.
He was my 7th and 8th grade Rebbe, and then I had him again in 12th grade, and we spoke every single day since then. And he had such a big influence on me in my life, not just religiously, but just like through everything in life. I had a lot of different life experiences that were really good. He played a big role in a lot of those. So because of that, I felt like I always had a desire to follow his path in some way. So that was a big role. So when smicha was something that was relevant in my life, both in age and also stage of life. He was a very big guiding force. I also have still, Baruch Hashem, amazing Rebbe, Rav Ami Merzel, who also helps me out throughout everything. So having really good Rebbeim in life was a very good, very big part of where I am over here. I didn't come to Israel thinking I was going to stay at all. I came for 1 year. I was ready to go back. My dream was to work at a high school at that point. I was very excited. I was blessed to have my first kid, Yakira. She's awesome. And then my wife tricked me into staying here. She said that we're staying here. If you want, you can stay with us. So here I am today, 9 years later, still living in Israel. It's the greatest decision of my life. But I guess a good example of what you were saying before is that it certainly wasn't my plan. So it was my plan, but I couldn't feel more blessed that I'm here in Israel and here specifically in this role.
How's me, by the way, Rabbi Cement is a fantastic role model to have.
He's the best.
For a lot of people. I'm going to ask one final question before we get to the real topics today is looking back at everything that you've done and being in the yeshiva system, working here for 9, 10 plus years, what gets you to come back every year? You do the same things probably every single year, learn the same stuff. What gets you going?
It's without a doubt the guys, meaning to see a guy make real life decisions. And I think that's what we're here discussing. This is like the pivotal point in his year, but seeing somebody change and really give thought to life. And I think the beauty of it is that I get asked this actually a lot. Don't you teach? I have a very certain unique way of teaching here in yeshiva. And does it get repetitive? Each guy is so different and has different goals and different aspirations and different ways of accomplishing things that each guy is so unique. And how could you not be excited to be here? So I heard one time from a Kalish, a beautiful line. He's they say, Rebbeim, you're so Moser Nefesh, for the guys. But Baruch Hashem, you get Om Haba, you're going to get, it's Om Haza here is awesome also. Just enjoying being around the guys and having a good time in the base, outside the base is awesome. So,
but speaking about the guys, you literally gave me the perfect portal to talk about what we're going to do today.
Let's do it.
So thank God we got about 60 Shraga guys in this room, and hopefully there will be a lot more yeshiva and hopefully seminary students listening to this as well. Pesach break from the day I post this is coming out in about 8 to 10 days from now, which is right when everybody here gets on the plane to go home.
I'll start my countdown right now. I'm excited. Yeah.
Start your countdown, okay? When people listen to this, they're basically going out of a structured system that they've been in for the past 7 months of their life. A lot of changes happen in that structured system for 7 months, and when you get thrown out of it and you have nobody on top of you, there's a lot of things that come with it. The first thing I want to highlight, obviously, is your friends. Speaking about the boys, is that you have a lot of friendships, a lot of guys that you knew before you came for yeshiva, and you get off the plane, and you have that 3-week period, and your boys text you, hey, come chill, let's pull up, let's do this, let's do that, and you might be in a different place than a lot of those guys. So talk about that. What do you do in those situations? Give a little bit of advice, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, that's a great question, and obviously something that is real. It's a real question. I think the first thing to answer this question, but maybe really to answer any question you're going to ask today, is if a guy's not asking this question or a girl's not asking this question. So I think that's an issue. Meaning, if you're asking this question, you're already on your way to succeeding. It should be that you should realize the magnitude of your actions and decisions. After a year of 7 months. But maybe some people are living their life differently 7 months now, but for the last 18 years, they've been living a different way. So you put one on one side of the scale, one on the other side of the scale, it's not easy. So I think just asking these questions, how am I going to succeed, is step one. Friends are a huge part. Friends are awesome. We should have friends. Adam wasn't meant to live alone. We're not supposed to live alone in this world. The question is, what is a friend? Right? We have in Perkei Avos the concept of that you should have friends. What is a friend? So I think maybe we lost track of what a friend is. A friend is not, and this is nothing wrong with this, it's fantastic, you need this in life also. A friend is not somebody who I just have fun with. That's important. You can have fun with a friend, but that's not what a friend is. So if I went to the park and I found five guys to go play ball with, so are those now like my friends? Are they coming? I had a great time, but it doesn't mean that those are my friends. So I think that the Jewish perspective of what a friend is someone who's there for me, really there for me, through ups, through downs. And so I think the question might be a little flawed. I will answer it, but I think a friend is someone there who wants the best for you. So I can say I have one friend in specific. His name's Aishi. Fantastic guy. We're very different religiously. Very different. Now, he would never want me to sacrifice any of my morals. We hang out. We have a great time together. But he would never want me to do something I feel uncomfortable. He's a great friend. Friends don't have to be the exact same religious level as you, but they have to care about you. So that's what I think a definition as a friend is. But to answer your point, which is still a real point, a guy calls you up, a girl calls you up and says, hey, do you want to hang out? And you know that I used to love it. I might even still enjoy it, but it's not where I should be right now. So this is my rule of thumb right here. So to give a sports muscle, this is common ground between the both of us, is play home games. Only play home games. What does that mean? You can hang out with, I think, almost anybody and succeed, but only on my turf and my rules. So I'll give you an example. Hey, you want to go out to the city on a Saturday night? So that might not be a home game. That's probably an away game. But you want to go play ball. You want to go, for pizza on a Tuesday afternoon in Teaneck in the 5 towns in Florida, whatever it is. So that great, you can hang out with that guy. We're talking about good people here. They might be different than us. So I think if your rule of thumb is this a home game or is this a away game, you'll succeed every time. There's a reason why people play, baseball 162 games a season just to get, home field advantage, or football, it's such a big deal. And those type of things is because the game is the same. There's 100 yards in every stadium. But whether you're home or away, it changes totally your level of success. So I think, is this a home game? You will succeed. And I think, again, asking yourself that question is the first key. And also just, as we said, to know really who your friends are and who aren't your friends is also a really big deal.
Happens to be, by the way, that story about home games was something you said. If I'm not mistaken, in my Shana Bet, I had a notebook that I basically took notes. Anytime I heard a rabbi say something that I was like, wow, I wrote that down. And I'm positive I have that written down in there, and the fact that you brought that up, great one.
That's
right
good.
There.
I clearly need new material, but I'll work on that.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I hear that.
That's how it is. I want to talk about goals, okay?
Sure.
So you get off the plane also. You're not in a structured system. You've been learning for 8-10 hours a day. Pesach break is a time where, at least from what I've seen speaking to people, you go through your ups and downs. You set your goals for yourself, and you don't always live up to them, and we'll talk about that in a second. But just from stage one is setting the right goals for yourself where you hopefully will not be able to live up to those and not let yourself down. So kind of talk about that a little bit and give a little bit of guidance in that area.
Yeah, I think setting goals is the most important thing. This is like a microcosm of, I think, like a big picture of life. You become a lawyer, a doctor, and everyone should be successful and go down their path. So you also need goals at that point, not just in business, but in family and in religious growth. Goals, being able to put something to paper, look at it, this is my aspirations in life. And then going and being able to do it is the key to success. So the key to success. I don't want to share too much intense theory to it, but I'll share you a quick thought. So the Gemara writes that there's 6 questions, but there's 3 questions. The first 3 questions are going to be asked after 120 years old. So you're going to go up to heaven. Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to ask you 3 questions. The first one is a machlokas, but the first 2 in different orders. Were you honest in business? Did you set aside time for learning? And did you have kids? Those are the first 3 questions that Hashem's going to ask you. The bracha we give a baby that's when you pass away. The bracha we give a baby when they're born is legadol Torah, chuppah, u'lemaisim tovim. And if you look, those 3 things that we give a bracha to a baby correspond exactly to the 3 things that Hashem asked you after 120. Chuppah is, did you have kids? Torah, maisim tovim, good actions where you're honest in business. What we're telling a baby is you need goals in life. This is where you're going to end up one day. Everyone 120 years old, Meretz Hashem, healthy, happy lives, but you're going to end up there one day. And that's the first question. If every decision you make, your newborn baby, is you heading is this one step closer to my goal or further from my goal, you will always be successful, always. So Judaism, I think, is predicated on having goals to succeed. My goal is different than your goal, and everyone should have different goals. But the concept of putting pen to paper and saying, this is where I'm headed for, this is what I'm trying to do, is I think is the key to success. How do you determine your goals? I think is a very personal question. Again, I would discuss with my Rebbe that I mentioned something like that. But I think a goal is the best muscle. I would be like is like working out. There's some things that is basics. You can't go into a gym and walk out 2 minutes later and be like, well, that's what I could do. Like, it's not true. You could do more than that. But I think that if 2 guys, if I lifted your weights and you lifted my weights, you probably lift way more than I do. But if I lifted your amount and you lifted my amount, so that might not be as successful for me or for you. But you don't lift something easy, but you don't lift something that you can't handle. So you set a goal that's pushing yourself, but it's something obtainable. I think sometimes guys have not realistic goals. If it's not realistic, you just get down on yourself and you don't succeed. So we have mitzvah grows mitzvah, mitzvah causes mitzvah, success causes success. You're more successful. I'm ready to do that the next day. So goal is there to push you. I walk out of my gym, my workout session, sweating a little bit, but it's something I'm excited to get back the next day to do.
I think that's a great point, by the way, about like speaking to your specific rabbi that knows you, and obviously that's, you can't give more specific answers on this, but I kind of want to touch on stage 2, which is you have goals for yourself, and very high chance for anybody that's listening to this that you're going back for Pesach break. The goals that you set for yourself, you probably will fail at some point. What's your advice for people when that day comes? Yes. If it comes. Not to say they will, but if it does.
Yeah, I mean, life is full of failures. It does, right? I do think that there are people who are scared because, what if I don't accomplish this goal? Then what? So everything I've been doing to now, I'm a fraud. So it's definitely not. Yeah, who knows that you're going to fail more than you is Hashem. Hashem created us as humans. He could have given the Torah to the angels, Malachim. He chose, because we have a Yetzer Hara, to give it to us. That was his decision. He knows we're going to make mistakes. The fact that mistakes are I don't want to say they're irrelevant. Of course, we try to avoid mistakes. It's what you do afterwards. As cliche as that sounds, but that's the real answer. A guy who throws in the towel after one mistake. So what is that? He wasn't trying. If a guy hits 300, he's a Hall of Famer. It's a career 300 batting average Hall of Famer. He was only successful 3 out of 10 times, or whatever it is, 300 out of 1,000 times. So that's your mistakes gonna happen. The guy who's successful, who understands that he can weather a mistake. So I'll give you an example. I stayed up late. I've been watching, March Madness coming up. I'm watching March Madness. So it's like I shouldn't have done that. I know I should have done that. I missed night Seder or whatever it is. Tomorrow's davening. Are you ready to go? Like what's the relevance? There's no connection to the two. So obviously when you're successful, you breed more success. But a failure, you pick yourself up. So I think that's shot in the pasuk, Shavi Yipol Tzadik V'Kam, right? So you can read it that the Tzadik gets up. He falls out, he gets up. But you could also read it that the guy falls down. And what he gets up, that's what makes him a tzaddik. Meaning, you're going to fall down, that's for sure. Ki shava yipol, the guy falls down 7 times, but when he rises up after, that's what makes him a tzaddik. So I think that's that's really the key. Is to understand that you're normal if you make mistakes, but to be willing to weather the storm it's awesome. That's certainly what I'm doing. I'm not perfect, so I'll tell you that much. If I got down every time I made a mistake, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
1,000%. And at the end, great point. At the end of the day, whenever you fall, you got to get back up. And I think you said this again. Every coach says this, but the real determination of somebody once they get back up and how they get back up, that is ultimately how you remember somebody. So
I'll give you even like another example. Let's say I have a goal. I want to. You can pick any goal you want. I'll give a classic. I want to learn X amount of Gemara a day, and I've been doing pretty well on all my goals. And this one I'm really struggling. You're gonna come back to yeshiva afterwards, or just anywhere in life. You might not be in yeshiva right now listening to this, or wherever it is. So it's like, I'll give you a good muscle. I think this works. You always want to stay connected to it, even if right now I'm not succeeding. If I take a goal and I'm like, I'm Xing this out completely from my list for the next 3.5 weeks or longer, whatever it is, it's really hard to pick it up later in life or at a different point. But if I'm still connected at Summit, I just need to pick it up. I need to maybe change my environment, change how I'm learning, what I'm learning, who's my chavrusa, all these different things. So as long as I'm connected to it, I think you can always come back. The muscle I like, and we've all experienced this before, you take a look at your phone and it's like you're down to like 2% on your phone. And you start scrambling for an iPhone wire. Because if that phone dies, it takes so long to reboot. You know what I mean? Once you hit 0, that's it. You're done for a few minutes. So, but if you plug that in, right away it starts going up. If you hit 0 on your Gemara learning, to get back in, you need a full reboot. It's not just like a little plug-in. Then you got to wait. Then you got to do. If you just connected at 2%, I'll go up slowly. I'll get there. And at the right time, you'll reconnect, whether it's back in yeshiva or just, whatever, a new chavrusa, a new stage of life, a new plan to make it successful. So I'd say even in those moments where you're not succeeding, don't be like throwing the towel in this one area completely. That's never going to be helpful.
Great. To that point, I just want to add to that and kind of get a little more specific, is that there's so many things you can learn, right? And the majority of what people learn in yeshiva is Gemara.
Yeah.
It is very hard when you have a busy day, when you're traveling out with your family, you're doing Chol Hamoed trips, to pick up a Gemara and get your head in it. And oftentimes when people try to do that, they don't succeed and then they end up failing. Do you have any recommendations on whether it's specific svarim to learn or different ways to essentially make it easier for yourself to be successful at those goals of learning?
Yeah. So again, I think that's a very general question, hard to answer. I feel very passionately about you should learn what you enjoy. That's the Gemara writes, Rachmana liba boy. Hashem wants your heart. So he wants your heart. He wants you to be in this. So I think somebody who becomes is like checking his box, like, yeah, like I did my 20 minutes of Gemara today, I did my 2 hours of Gemara today, but it was like begrudgingly. He was so upset to do it. So it's not what we're looking to do. But to learn something that you're excited about, and I even one up that, not just learn excited, like, Pesach's coming, write your own Divrei Torah and Agada, make it your own, make it part of who you are. So I think you enjoy it so much more. And I don't think it will end there. I think that'll be the catalyst to like a springboard of a tremendous amount of wanting to do things that are more textually based and more tough. In terms of like answering the question directly, let's say a guy, his aspiration is to learn Gemara. So you need, in this, I think more than anything, you need a goal. So, our yeshiva, Rabbi Schneider starts Sota. It's 49 days, starts during to Omer. So, at least the beginning part is during Bein Hazmanim. So it's 49 days of the Omer, you make a siyum on Shavuos or Erev Shavuos, whatever it is. It's a goal. It's a day in, day out. It's a bite-sized goal every single day. Doing chazara on what you've accomplished until this point. There are certain things. I think maybe the biggest thing when it comes to a tough, goal in terms of textually based learning is someone who's going to hold you accountable. A chavrusa, a Rebbe, someone like that, who you're going to look in the eye and say, you know what, I could probably do this, and maybe I'm not working as hard as I could. So someone who can hold you accountable. Sometimes we have a hard time holding ourselves accountable. So that's what I would say is a good method, good plan to making it work.
Fantastic point. And obviously, Rabbi Schneider's still sitting behind me, so I'm going to give a shout out to Rabbi Schneider and also a plug to join the Sota squad, because I did it with Rabbi Schneider when I was in Shana Aleph. It's definitely something to push yourself. And if you have the ability to do something like that,
absolutely.
49 days, 49 daf. To the point of, I kind of want to pivot a little bit, okay? Family is a whole podcast in and of itself. And there's so much to talk about that. But just to get a little specific on those things is, you leave your house in September, you come for yeshiva. A lot of guys make a lot of switches in their life, whether they want to be more makbid on halacha, be more serious about this, whatever it may be. And then they get back home to their house, to their parents, and their family's still the same, and they're a little different. And dealing with that sometimes is very, very challenging. So talk a little bit about, advice for people to deal with essentially their family not being used to things that they're makbid on, or just essentially the new version of you in a little sense. We will be right back to this week's episode. First, I want to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today, and that is Yachad Summer. If you are listening to me right now, and you're in yeshiva or seminary, and you're like, I want to have a meaningful summer experience while also having a blast at the same time, look no further than Yachad Summer. What makes Yachad Summer so special, in my opinion, is that it gives people with special needs, literally from little kids to full-grown adults, the ability to have the best summer of their life. There are 26 Yachad programs across the world, some in Israel, some in America, and it really covers a wide spectrum for any of you that want to get involved in different capacities on Yachad summer programs. They have their own specific camps directed towards specifically all Yachad, and then also what they do, in my opinion, which is so cool, is that they come into some of the most mainstream camps that you know of, like all the Moshe Vaz, Masorah, Lavi, Morsha, and they merge their program within those. So now it gives you the ability to kind of have a little of the best of both worlds as well. And just, it's such an awesome experience. And really, in my opinion, for all of you that have been learning this over the year, it gives you the ability to take all that you learned in the base medrash and apply that outside the base medrash in a beautiful form of chesed. And honestly, if you're listening to me right now and you're like, hey, I don't know if this is right for me, I don't know if I want to do this. This might be a little bit out of my comfort zone. At least have a conversation with the people from Yachad. I'll put their details in the show notes below. I'll also put my email. If you want to just reach out to me, and I'll connect you with the people at Yachad, totally go ahead and do it. You're not committing to an entire summer by just having a conversation. It is worth it, I promise you. So if you're interested to learn more, check the show notes below. And now it's time to get back to this week's episode.
So I would say 99% of the time, which is a very big percentage, there is nothing that is worth real fights with your family. Meaning it's like, it's so important, your relationship with your family. And, often I think it's with your parents, but with your siblings or extended family also, it's so important. They sent you here. The amount of Akar Satov you have to have is tremendous. I also think sometimes guys get lost in the details for something. So I'll give you an example. Kibbud Avim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. It's one of the 10 commandments. Say guys like, my dad likes it when I sit next to him in shul. But my dad's minyan goes a little fast. And I'm a slower davener. But he's going to be really upset if I don't. He's been waiting. He's been talking about me 2 months. I can't wait for you to sit next to me in shul. So there's a mitzvah d'oraisa on the table right now to daven with him. It's, to go a little fast, to skip. There's halachas, what you skip, what you don't skip. So to put one next to the other, it's a no-brainer to me that there are probably most of the times you could solve them by just like using your brain, thinking like, is this really worth it? Is not worth it? Maybe there's a way around it. Maybe if I get to shul 5 minutes early and I daven earlier, I can actually daven at the same speed and sit next to my dad. So a lot of the time, I think it's looking with like, what eye are you looking? Are you looking to start something? If you're looking to start something, I think you're making a big mistake. Your parents are awesome. They put you here. Without them, you're not here. So like Hakar Satov, I think is like a storage house. This is hard for people, myself included. We're so used to like, what have you done for me lately? So our parents, all of it, mine definitely included. I have special parents, Baruch Hashem. So it's like the amount of storage they have in my storage house of things I should have to them is huge. So for me to come home after 7 months of yeshiva and kind of belittle every single thing that they did is tough to swallow. I think there's almost no scenario where one should do that. At the same time, let's be honest. There's tough. My family's going to the beach. That's not for me anymore. They eat in certain places that are not for me anymore. So I think the real way to do this, I'll give two pieces of advice from my own experience. Piece number one is that they really go hand in hand. Is that you got to have a conversation with them. If you respect yourself and you bring them into it, I think almost always they'll work with you, at least in things that are really big. I mean, you tell them there's amazing restaurants out there that they have to eat only in this restaurant. I think they'd be happy to switch with you. They go to the beach in the morning before anyone else is there, or do something of that nature. I think it'll be totally, totally excited to work around you and with you. The second piece of how they, I think, respect that a lot is by you being consistent. So I'll give you an example. This happened over this past summer. A student of mine calls me up and he's very frustrated. His parents want to go on a vacation and there's no minyan there for 2 days. And this guy, not only has he been going to minyan, he's been going to Vasikin the last almost a year. And he's very frustrated about it. So the first thing I asked him, I said, how's your minyan attendance beforehand? Like how you been doing it at home? So the truth is I haven't been going to Vasikin. But I've been so-and-so a shachris every day, but mincha nazma. And I said to him, it's hard for you to say this to your parents when you yourself weren't consistent. If your parents see you consistent, these are really your values. All parents want is for the kids to succeed and to be happy. So parents and kids could be different. If a parent makes X amount of money a year, shouldn't he want his kid to be more successful financially? So if a parent, they connect in these ways or that ways, but their kid is connecting in different ways spiritually, usually parents will be excited about it, as long as this is the real you. If half the time you're not going to minyan at home when it's simple, and now you're so makbid on it on vacation, and you're going to ruin it, so then it's hard. So I think if you're consistent, and then you have that conversation with them, and you understand when it's worth it to try to have that conversation with them, and when it's just okay, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can show up to my father's minyan and just show up a few minutes early and sit next to him. Then I think that most 90+% of the time things will work out well.
2 points that I love over there is the thanks and having that analogy of their parents' storage box being full with the opportunity for thanks. And I think I've seen success from myself and other people. When you really thank your parents for everything that they've done, and then follow up with okay, we need to do this to kind of accommodate for me. It definitely helps out. I want to ask another question kind of related to the relationship with your parents, right? You come home, let's say you're, as we said, more makpid on certain areas, specifically when it comes to halacha. Let's say you come in your house, your parents are not keeping certain halachos that you now are trying to keep yourself and you're familiar with. How do you know that line of, should you be saying something to them? Hey, by the way, you shouldn't be doing like this, do it like that. Like how do people navigate that whole part?
So again, this I really think it matters. This maybe more than any other question matters on your parents. There are some parents who are thirsting to know the answers to these things, and as long as it's said in the right way, then I think they would be happy to hear it. They just might not know it. they legitimately might not know that this was the right thing to do. It matters in your relationship with them. And usually kids know if their parents would be excited about learning something new in this halachic area, whatever that is. If that's the case, then great. If I had a new piece of information about anything that my parents were excited about, I would share with them, as long as it was something they would be excited to hear about. But let's say it's something that they'd be less excited, like, oh, why do you have to? We've been doing it this way for the last 20 years. Why do you have to come in and do it differently? So I think that you're not your parents' rabbi. You're not your parent. That's not your job. Most of us, myself included, but certainly boys and girls coming back from Shana Aleph, we're just beginning our train. We've been learning for 7 months, 8 months, and hopefully that continues for a lifetime. There's a lot that we need to learn before we should be going and helping other people. From the classic mashal that, if the plane's going down, God forbid, that you strap on your own oxygen mask before you help anyone else out, because you have to be, in order to help someone out, you need to be successful. So we shouldn't focus so much. I think often when we get so, we're looking at other people and looking through the window glass at what everyone else is doing, and sometimes it's the people who are closest to us. We should look in the mirror more and look at ourselves. What can we do better? So I think that if your parents are doing something different than you, certainly if it's not impeding you yourself, then you're not your parents' rabbi. And at the right time, and maybe you can, through osmosis, you can influence them and as beautiful. And if not, they're still beautiful. And if you don't, you still have kibbut avim for them. When things impede your success and your growth, that's really tough. And that's a really tough question. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I'm not trying to scapegoat it here. I think that's a case-by-case scenario. Got to know what takes halachic precedence and have a good Rebbe. Have a good Rebbe in life.
Obviously, you got to ask your LOR in those situations. I something you just said a second ago is, like your parents say to you, oh, we've been doing this for 20 years. Like, you don't need to do it your way. That type of situation that happens, I feel like to a lot of people where, even with your old friends, it's kind of channeling back to what we were saying before, is that, you're making these shifts in your life and you're, growing as a human being. And then the people that knew you before begin to make comments about like, whoa, what are you doing that? Like they're not as, respectful, or they're not like accepting you kind of the way you are. So kind of how do you go through that interpersonal relationship with whether it's your parents or your friends when they're making those comments about your growth that you've done in yeshiva? Right.
That's a great question, and that happens. I think sometimes we have the spotlight effect on us a little bit too much, that we think people are like looking at us more than like you could show up to that first chakras off the plane and like, was everyone staring at me like how long my Shemona Esrei was? Probably not. You just sat next to the clock. Everyone's looking at the clock. Like people don't care as much as you really think, if I had to guess. That's the first answer. I think that's an honest answer. Leaving your parents aside, because they will be with you for life, Be'ez Hashem, but the friends and things like that, you move, friends change, people play, even great people. These are life decisions that like you got to make. If this is for you, so yeah, you take a comment and you get a pat on the back and you move on in life. There's a phrase that was used totally, I love this phrase, but in a totally different way than it was used originally. It's got to be a few years old already. YOLO, you only live once. So that expression is like, do whatever let me go skydiving, YOLO, I only live once. I think it's a genius phrase, not my own at all. But YOLO, you only live once. Let me live it the way I want. I'm not going to live it based off you. I've been on a trajectory that's been fantastic with the guidance of my parents, my Rebbe, and a guy's going to make a comment about like how long my Shemona Esrei is, or like, oh, you're really going to go to that shul instead of this shul? It's like, yeah, like I got one shot at this, and like this is what's important to me. These are my priorities, of course. Especially when it doesn't affect anyone else. You're doing it in your own way. So I think that you should be proud of your growth. And yeah, friends are friends. They're going to say good jokes and bad jokes, to be honest with
you. To that point of friends and you having, Baruch Hashem, a lot of Talmidim, are there any stories that might come to mind of this is what this guy did, to have success during his break, on Pesach?
It's a good question.
Putting you on the spot.
No, I appreciate that. I like to be put on the spot. It's good. Any stories? I really think that keeping it simple is the best way. I don't think there needs to be like this massive thing day in and day out. Schedule is key. There's something that a group of guys in our yeshiva did last year, and I recommended it this year, and I heard it's happening. It's a group of guys, 12, 13, 14 guys. They go to a base midrash or a house together, and they have their own morning kollel. Someone sponsors breakfast, they daven, they learn together, and they're all like friends. And by the way, it ends up being an awesome day. They usually hang out afterwards together, get lunch together, whatever it is. So those guys they have each other's backs. People like to say, and I'm sure that you're involved in all these yeshivas and seminaries. You've heard this before, is that like your friends from yeshiva and seminary, your friends for life. And I think the reason for that comes back to the first thing we really spoke about is what's a friend? A friend is there who grows with you, who's there for you. That's why they end up staying for life, no matter where you move. So I think if you surround yourself by those people, it's like, I'm not going to be a lone guy in my room by myself learning, but I'm going to be putting myself in a place with like-minded people. And just the day in and day out grind of that is the key and formula to success. I think if you're looking for a miracle, you're not going to find it. You don't need anything special. Just every day, show up to do your part and do it around people and with people who are like-minded and succeeding in that area, and you'll be successful also.
1,000%. I think, I don't know if I'm doing this off the cuff. Obviously, I think Sam Ashendorf was that guy that made that morning call. No, am I crazy?
It could be.
Champ.
It could be last year. Last year, Ezra Stilfen did it. I think Sam's the year older. I think Shea Fields he's doing it. And by the way,
shout out.
If Shea wasn't doing it, he's definitely doing it now because I just put him on the spot. So that's great. We're looking for the guy in the 5 towns. So Nathaniel Lawrence, I know, was very interested in it. So. It's looking very likely, and we're open to all yeshivas, and just not seminaries. Seminaries should do it also, just not at Nathaniel Lawrence's house.
They do actually shout out to, what was that?
Seminaries should do it also, just not at Nathaniel Lawrence's house, somewhere else.
Outside.
Yeah.
Actually, shout out, I'm going to do this right now anyways, but we are sponsoring, Israel Gapper is sponsoring a Back to Seminary event on Zoom with a lot of people from the seminary we're giving. Sure, so.
That's awesome.
There you go.
That's great. Send me that link.
Not Nathaniel Lawrence. Got you. It's all good, Baruch Hashem.
On that note, actually, I just wanted to say one thing about Nathaniel Lawrence. He was Offensive Player of the Year this year in the Israel Football League. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
I got you. I'm looking at our time frame right now. I'm going to cut this off in 11 minutes. But as we're going off the cusp, and since we have a live crowd here, I know if you guys said to me before when you walked in the room, you're like, could we ask a few questions? So I'm going to throw it out. Anybody here want to be that guy to ask a question that's going to go to Rabbi Feld? Anybody? That's Nathaniel. What's your shiloh you got for Rabbi Feld?
Yeah, so in Yeshiva, it's very easy to, it's very accessible to learn 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Because Seder and whatever we have on the schedule. So when we go home, what's the right amount of time we should or could or learn?
Repeat the question, by the way, if anybody didn't hear from the mic.
The question was that in Yeshiva we learn many hours a day, 3, 4, 5. Some people probably even up to 10 hours a day. What is the proper amount, way, time that one could learn Yeshiva at home where we don't have that same structure? So it's a great question. I think 2 things. Number one is I think it's Bein Hazmanim. I think Bein Hazmanim is a time between the Zmanim to also do other things at that point. I think that's more than fine. So I think that you should figure out for yourself what the right amount of time is. I'll give you on this topic, but maybe a slightly different answer. I think when you should be learning, and it will make it much, much easier. If your learning is part of your schedule and it's attached to your davening. So I go to Shachris, I'm already there, I know I'm doing it. Let's say I go to an 8 o'clock Shachris, 8:30, 9, whatever it might be. Many things don't happen with family or friends before 11 o'clock. So right there, I could stay there, I could learn. That's my 2 hour, it's right there. And then again, in Ma'ariv, there's Ma'arivs in most Jewish communities till very, very late these days. You can go and you can a little bit before, a little bit after. So it's kind of built into your schedule and creates that structure. Even without that structure, we spoke about having a group of guys do this together. That's even better. So I think that would create a lot of that structure and also built into your time. If you know that you're there for the next 2 hours, 3 hours, so it's much easier to learn. I think for some guys and some girls, it might be successful learning 30 minutes a day. I think for some guys, it might be 5 minutes a day. So the amount of time is really personal, but I think the common denominator is creating the structure within not having structure. And the beauty of this is, if you could do it right now, then you could do it for life. And I want to say something maybe harsh. I'm not usually such a harsh guy.
I'll take care. Give me one.
I'll say it. If you can't do it right now, then maybe you won't be able to do it later in life, unless something happens. Meaning, there's a concept called inspiration. Inspiration brings you on a high. But everyone it's called inspiration because it doesn't last. So the key is to act on that inspiration. If you have 7 months of growth it's more than just inspiration, but 7 months of inspiration plus real progress, and then you go home and you can't do it. So why do you think you're going to do it when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50? So if you can't do it now, it's going to be hard to do it later. There's a line, one of my favorite things I maybe learned in any sefer. I think I know exactly where it is. It's Chovas Al Talmidim, page 145 in the English edition. Check me on that one. Pretty sure that's where it is. It says that the only thing that grows older is the eternal years, meaning the only thing that grows old by itself is the years of a person. I'm 1, now I'm 2, now I'm 3, and so on and so forth. But the person himself doesn't grow old unless you do something about it. Meaning, I could be a 30-year-old stuck in a 10-year-old's midos body, a 10-year-old's knowledge body. Even though the only thing that grows old are the internal years, the things by itself. So if you can't do it now, you might be a 30-year-old and a 40-year-old, but your intellect and your ability and your desire and your closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu might still be that early stage of life. So I think to set yourself up for success and to push yourself and to realize the magnitude of utilizing this time well. And what if you're somebody who's already past this stage and you just like Avi Proctor's awesome podcasts and you're listening to it? So not now, then later. If you start at 30, it's easier than 40. You start at 50, it's easier than 60. Tomorrow you're a day older than you are today. So let's get on the horse and start riding.
Fantastic advice, and honestly, I agree with what you said about connecting to Minyan, because like that personally helps me too.
Yeah,
so, good one. What's the shout out? Alicia Cohen, shout out.
When someone comes back from yeshiva and seminary, they have like a lot of light that they might want to or should shed upon other people that are in America. Literally, just a year earlier, you were in their spot. Is there something that you would suggest that someone could do to kind of do something for their community or for their high school or something?
that was great. When
Repeat that question also.
Yeah, so a guy often very excited, or girl very excited. They come back and they want to share Divrei Torah. They want to share ideas. They want to influence people. What's the way to get that done? So I love the fact that you answered this question. When I introduced myself, I left out one thing that I do, that I spend a lot of time doing, and it's a place actually where my heart lies, maybe more than almost anywhere else, and it's called Pivot. I have the schus of working with other great people, with NCSY, with other awesome, another organization, beautiful organization. And really what we do is it's based through the summer, and we connect high school, college guys who are sitting learning yeshiva, college age guys with high schoolers. And we pair them up. We give them Makoros every single week, and we do these different davening incentives and tzitzis incentives. It's a lot of fun. It's a great time. There's great rewards, great things. And when I brought up this idea of starting this, so I was everyone's like, great, the high schoolers are going to be learning more than ever. And I said to them, really, my goal in this is for the advisors, the older age guys, for you to have a platform to give back and to share Divrei Torah and to understand that you are achrai, you have obligation on our community. Just because I have a certificate that I have smicha, it doesn't make me more achrayus than you are. You also are. So there are organizations and ways to get involved. I guess that's my own shout out right there, but I'll take
put the link in the bio, by the way.
I guess it's beautiful, and Baruch Hashem, I'm supposed to be part of that team. But it's more than that. I think where there are shuls, I know where I grew up, there's a shul that has a Post Shon Aleph guy every single day give a shir. But I would say create it. You yourself happen to be very musically talented, so create a tish and speak in the middle of it. That'd be amazing. Every guy should think of how to give over to the community, like you're saying. And by the way, if that's your Yitzhahara, that's a beautiful Yitzhahara, I think. I also just add one other thing that I think is a nice idea, is that it doesn't have to be giving over formally Torah. It could be chesed. Our communities are amazing. Growing up, we did Tomchei Shabbos. It was like, to me, that was like I didn't understand the magnitude of it. It was awesome. There's a friendship circle, and it's unlimited. Fortunately and unfortunately, unfortunately that we need it, and fortunately that there's amazing things. Shed your light that way. That's a beautiful way. I don't think any person can't find a place or a way to give back. And I want to say something again, maybe not as nice as I would try to be, but I think every person is achrai. Every person is obligated and responsible for this in our community. Doesn't matter your job, your age, or your ability. We need you some way or another. And I actually think, again, I'm very passionate about this. I actually think it gets lost. I think in our year in Israel, sometimes it's very selfish growth, and it should be. It's the only time where we got to lock in on ourselves. But when we step out of that four walls of the beautiful base midrash, whether it's for a small period or for a long-term period, it's okay, how am I taking this with me? And for Klal Yisrael, like we said before, the piece of the puzzle idea. You're a piece of the puzzle, or maybe that comes at the end of the podcast, but the piece of the puzzle idea, so you got to affect everyone else's puzzle.
Fantastic. I love it. I mean, just create what you want for yourself. That's how I sum that one up. That's good.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about right now is Pesach, okay? This is just not necessarily on the topic of the things we were discussing a few minutes ago, but obviously you're a Rebbe and you have always Geschmack Torah to share. In terms of the Seder, give a little bit of like insight. How can we prepare, get ready in the mindset for Pesach, especially when you go from like the most kadosh place in the world, you're in Yeshiva, to now you might be on the beach in Miami doing something, or you might be somewhere else where you're not in that situation.
Yeah, so the Seder, it happens to be, it's my favorite time of the year. The only thing you asked me about in the beginning about living in Israel, so the only regret I have, the only thing I miss, maybe, actually that's not true, I miss a lot of things. One of the things I miss about living in America is I love the Seder so much, I wish I had two. I love the Seder. I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic night. I think preparing for it is awesome. You know, we have a general halacha, shloshim yom kodem l'chag. They were always supposed to prepare 30 days in advance. There's a halacha that at your Purim Suda already to start preparing Pesach, and I think people are more makbid about that. There's amazing Haggadahs out there, fantastic. I just came across this one, I think it's great. It's the Riffs Haggadah, it's awesome. It's fantastic. There's other Haggadahs though out there besides that one that are great, and just like being and preparing and working on it and coming to the Seder prepared. Seder means order, prepared. So you come, you're ready to go, and you have a great time. Some houses love sharing Divrei Torah. You can add those in, and there's actually a concept of the more the better. Harezeh meshubach, the more that you do. There's people who stay up after Seder and share Divrei Torah. Imagine coming to the night of freedom, the big night. This is it. We've been waiting for this. The Jewish people, they're 210 years. And you're coming and like, whoa, I'm not prepared for this. So you come, you prepare for it. It's a totally different experience. You know, this ties in with many things we said. Preparing for the Seder is a great way to be successful on during your break. And it's a great time to spend time with your family in a religious setting, in a home game. It's like you could put everything into that Seder night. You want to show up and be ready to go, excited. It's awesome.
On that note, before I ask my last question is, you know, guys in yeshiva and people in seminary as well, you know, they learn and they prepare and they have, let's say, all these things they want to share on Haggadah, and then you get to the Seder with your family. Some families are like, let's just move along, you know what I'm saying? Let's chill with the Dvar Torah. Like, how do you balance as like a person that just wants to share everything that you're learning? Because a lot of these things are new. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I found myself one year, interesting story. Growing up, a Seder is very big in my house. My grandfather, who passed away last year, so he ran our Seder. It's a very big deal in our house. And so even when I don't think I appreciated it as much, looking back, it's like some of my best childhood memories. And now being someone who it's my favorite time of the year to prepare and to learn, I love to share Divrei Torah at the Seder. But like you're saying, not everyone always wants to hear. One year I found myself in a Seder that had no interest whatsoever. And I was really bummed out about it. And as I was preparing and learning halachos and Divrei Torah about it, so there's a very famous idea that the Seder is all about questions. Question answer, back and forth, father to son. You know, what if there's no father to son? So you could do, you know, husband to wife. And what if there's nobody there? And people experience this during Corona. So you're supposed to ask yourself questions and answers. So I was thinking to myself, you know what, that's what I'm going to do this year. After the Seder, I'm going to just say Divrei Torah. And I just said it, and it was great. It was a great experience. Maybe I'm more confident than other people. I could speak to myself, but just the idea of sharing that you should share Divrei Torah on Seder night one way or another. Again, I think parents would be excited. Pick your one or two favorite ones. Share them with your friends. That kolo the whole week before. Write them down for yourself. One way or another, I think you coming and sharing Divrei Torah on Seder night, whether formally or just by yourself, it's awesome. And I think making something your own. This is what I looked this up and I saw this over here and this over there. And this reminds me of the Gemara that I happened to be learning in Bava Metzia that year or whatever it might be. Make it your own is that's what it is. Being free on Seder night is I have the ability now to do my own thing within the confines of halacha. So I think that's what you could do on Seder night, and it's great.
Fantastic point. And I feel like at the end of the day, just keep it simple because, you know, simple is good and it works. The last question I'm going to throw at you is my favorite question I ask to every guest, not related to specifically anything we said here. God willing, there will be a lot of people that listen to this episode. And if you had one message in a bottle, it could be about anything in life that you want to get the word out there to people, that they take that with them wherever they go, what would that be?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
You have a lot to share, so I'm curious.
I watch all your podcasts. I'm not sure. Did I ever make it to the last minute, though? I'm not sure if I knew that was coming. One message to share, to me, it's hard to say this, but if I had to pick one, I think it would be undoubtedly that you have a lot of value. You have a lot of value. The muscle that I like for this, and I have a great story about this, actually, also true story. I have a sister-in-law that I spent Pesach with, actually. This was a few years ago in Florida, and she, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was a 10,000 piece puzzle she was working on. 10,000 pieces. That's a lot of pieces. She finds it therapeutic. It's not for me, I'll be honest. But she's 9,999 in, and we can't find the last piece of the puzzle. And she bought this puzzle glue. I didn't even know this existed. You could glue a puzzle together. You can hang it, frame it, and hang it. So she bought this puzzle glue. And this is like her 7-8 day project that she was doing over the course of Pesach. We find out afterwards, my son flushed it down the toilet. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, what do you do?" We went to a room. I gave him a high five. I'm like, "You're the man. It's a great story." But that 9,999 piece puzzle was for nothing at the end. You can't hang up a puzzle with a missing piece. So some of us are pieces with a nice picture. Some of us are pieces with nothing, just the border, whatever it is. But every yid has value. The day you're born is the day Hashem says, "I can't live without you anymore." So I think if there's one message to say, you have value in this. You matter. Hashem took you out of Mitzrayim also, took your answer, and that's a value. By the way, if you wake up with that every single day, so it's like, yeah, okay, my goals are important. Everything has value. One message, that would be it without a doubt. There's other good ones, but we'll have to circle back another time for it.
Round 2 will come, Bezrat Hashem, soon. So I took a lot from this episode, and that was a great point. Ultimately, I never heard that story, by the way. That's not in my notebook from you.
Can I ask you a question? If you had one message for people, what would it be?
That's so weird being on this end of it right now.
Not to put you on the spot.
I got one, actually. I think I got one for you. You only have one life to live.
YOLO.
YOLO.
That's it.
That's what it is. I'm saying it in a different way because at the end of the day, one thing I've realized, I'm young, Baruch Hashem, I got a whole life to live, but I realized through seeing different things in my life, and this is definitely not a podcast about my life story, is that you could wake up today and you might not be here tomorrow. And whatever you do in this world to make an impact on everybody else around you, that when you're in the ground and people come visit you, they have things to say about how you impacted their life. That's by far my
love that
message about.
Okay, round 2, I'm interviewing you though.
Fine. Okay, let's make it happen. We'll do it on Amcha this summer as a live.
It.
Shout out Amcha. Show notes. Link over there. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to the Shraga boys for sitting through this one. Much appreciated. And
thanks for having me.
Have a Chag Kosher V'Sameach, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode. I had a blast filming that one, as I always do. And honestly, that was the first one, as I mentioned, that I did in front of a live crowd. And if you're in any other yeshiva or seminary and you're listening to me and you're like, "Hey, I have a rabbi in my school that you should totally interview," whether it's a yeshiva or a seminary, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the bio below. Reach out to me and we'll see what we can make happen. So looking forward to seeing you guys in the next episode in 2 weeks with Bezrat Hashem on Pesach, which is all about halachic topics and issues that students face in their year in Israel. We'll see you guys soon. All the best.